Hey guys, yeah, a lot has happened last night. Trump easily won the primary against Nikki Haley. This was her home state, and she didn't even get 40% of the vote. She's been wiped out. It's a joke at this point, but she won't drop out. And we'll get into that. Look, try to understand what's happening here. But this really signifies something that's very eerie. I'm getting the feel that I had when I lived in Oklahoma, because Oklahoma's in Tornado Alley. And before a tornado would come, everything would get really weird. It had a weird feel in the air, it almost like a green tent, and everything got really still. It's like you've heard the expression, the calm before the storm. It was really that way. And then all of a sudden, the thunderstorms would come in and the tornado, and it'd just be crazy. I thank God I was never hit by a tornado, but I was within a mile or two. And I'm getting that feeling now in America that as of today, I'm filming this on February 25th, 2024. We're kind of in the calm before the storm. I can see the clouds, the tornado clouds coming towards us, and there's no way we're getting away from it. I don't see it going away. It's headed straight towards us, and I'm getting that feeling. And the issue is we're really facing, I think, a constitutional crisis in this country because of all these stupid court cases against Donald Trump, the corruption of our legal system. Everything is really starting to break apart. And right now, everything's kind of holding together, but it's looking ominous. All right. Well, let's first of all get to the election results of last night. Yeah, Trump won easily, about almost 60% of the vote. Haley had all the shit lib money pouring into her. Democrats were voting for in that primary, and it didn't matter. Trump just crushed her. And by Super Tuesday, which is March 5th, I think, so this is coming up in a couple of weeks, Haley will have officially lost. Trump will have pretty much all the delegates. So the question is, why is Nikki Haley staying in the race? It seems really strange because it's expensive to stay in a race, especially when you know you have no path to victory. And people run for the nomination for, I think basically, let's see, how one, two, three, four typical reasons people run. One is to win. They think they can really win. I think DeSantis was in this category. He thought he could get the nomination. But then when he saw that it wasn't possible, he dropped out. Another possibility, reason you might run, is even if you don't think you're going to win this election, you want to prepare for the next election 4 years from now. And I think DeSantis could be in this category too. So even if Trump is president, Trump can't run after his next term. DeSantis could say, hey, I'm kind of next in line. So that's another reason people run, even if they don't win the nomination. But again, once you see you're not going to win that year, you gracefully bow out like DeSantis did. The third reason is sometimes you're campaigning for a job in the administration. It's a good way to get some limelight on you. I would put Vivek in this category. And I really like Vivek. I really do. But by running for president in the primary, he was able to get on all these talk show hosts. Before this election cycle, no one really knew him. But now he's sort of front and center, and he's kind of speaking for Trump. He was at CPAC, endorsing Trump, leading the charge. And I think it's a very good possibility if Trump should win the election, Vivek will have a position in the administration, which will help, obviously, Vivek's career going forward. And the last reason is some people just run because they want something that looks good on their obituary. Like Asa Hutchinson, I think he had to know that there's no path. There was never a path for someone wanting Asa Hutchinson to win the nomination. It was a joke. I mean, he would have a rally, to have like 6 people show up. It was just a bucket item. So when he dies, he's in his 70s. He has another thing he could put on his obituary. I was the governor of Arkansas, and I ran for the president of the United States as a Republican in the primary. So he's got that he could put on his obituary. But where's Nikki Haley in this? See, it really doesn't fit. Because again, she is not really positioning herself for the next election. She's really burning a lot of bridges with the base. The Republican base hates her. And obviously, Trump is not going to put her in his administration. And this isn't, I don't really get a sense just a bucket item from her. I think she definitely wants power. So there's something else more sinister, I think, going on. And Nikki has to know there's no way, there's no path for her to win the nomination of the GOP via votes. There's just no way. It's not going to happen. If she can't even come close in her home state of South Carolina, by the time we get to Super Tuesday on March 5th, she's going to be wiped out. So, what is she planning on? And well, she's planning on Trump being removed because of all these court cases, and then maybe she'll be the nominee. But I don't, if that's what she's planning, I don't even think that's going to work because the delegates, again, once you're a delegate, you're pledged to like Trump. So when you go to the convention, I think it is in July, you have to cast your first vote for Trump. Now, if it's a brokered convention and no one gets a majority, then you can change your vote. But if someone can't vote for Trump and they're Trump supporters, they're sure the hell are not going to vote for Nikki Haley. So the delegates that come to the convention in July, even if Trump is removed, are not going to vote for Nikki. So there's not a path I see for Nikki whatsoever, unless the GOP deal makers, they don't really care about the delegates and they just take the matters in their own hands, which will be a huge issue too. All right, but I thought this would be a good time now to really go over the court cases and where we stand, because that's all that really matters at this point, because Trump easily has a nomination out for the GOP. And with the most recent polls, Biden is losing all the key states right now. Biden is a horrible candidate. He's getting worse by the day. His senility, it's a disaster. I suppose they could cheat, but unless they cheat in the elections, I don't see Biden having really a good chance. We will see, but it's not looking good. So they're really basing everything on these court cases. And let's just kind of review where we are in the court cases and what could be the possible outcome. I put together a chart here, as you see. And the first case coming up that's on the docket is March 25th, and this is the state of New York. And this is for that stupid, he falsified business records because he paid hush money to Stormy Daniels to, not say anything. And again, that's not illegal to do that, but they're saying he had his documentation set up wrong, and there's 34 counts so he's facing 34 like felonies on this. And that is coming up, and the judge is a Colombian-born man, Juan Merchan, and Trump probably doesn't have much of a chance in this case, not because we're in a tribal America. So it doesn't really matter the evidence. It just depends on the jury where it is. And this is going to be a jury in the state of New York, Manhattan. They're all Democrats. Probably most won't be white people. They're going to find him guilty no matter what. And then on May 20th, currently, we have a federal case. This is the mishandling of classified documents. And this is 40 felony counts. And this is one of the cases Jack Smith is bringing up against Trump. And remember, this is when Trump had the documents at his home, which other presidents have, or former presidents, or not even presidents have done. Hillary Clinton did this. She had documents in her bathroom, but there was no charges pressed. Mike Pence had the same issue. They didn't do anything about it. Joe Biden had documents in his garage with his Corvette, but the Justice Department just recently ruled they're not going to charge Joe Biden because he doesn't have the mental capability to stand trial, literally. But they're charging Trump for this, and this is on May 20th. And again, he will undoubtedly be found guilty just because of the makeup of the jury and how this is set up. And the judge right now, she may be removed, but it's Eileen Cannon. And curiously, like the other judge, she's not even born in America. She's born in Colombia, Colombian-born woman. And then on August 6th, we have a state trial of the state of Georgia. And this is a racketeering by a criminal organization that tried to overturn the election results. This is because Trump objected to the results in Georgia, thought there were some shenanigans. He asked the legislature to look into that. And they're like, oh, you're trying to interfere in our elections. And this is a case that is being brought forward by Fannie Willis. And this case is running into problems because Fannie Willis, who's a district attorney, she was caught literally in bed with the prosecutor, Nathan Wade. They had an affair, tons of corruption in this case. So Trump is currently trying to get this case dropped because of the corruption of the district attorney. So that could happen. Then the last case, we don't have a date on. It could happen anytime. It's gone to the Supreme Court. They're waiting on a Supreme Court ruling. This is a federal election conspiracy trial, and the special counsel is Jack Smith. The judge is an empowered Black female named Tanya Sue Chutkan. And obviously, if it goes to trial based on that judge and the jury he'll be found guilty. But the Supreme Court is ruling is even if Trump can go to trial because of the presidential immunity. So those are the cases that are coming up. We have a couple state cases in New York and Georgia, and then a couple of federal cases. Again, we will, if all of these cases, just on the basis of how they'll set up the jury, he's going to be found guilty because these are political trials, are not really trials based on crimes. But the question is, what then? These are felonies. And an interesting thing in America, you can't vote as a felon, but you can run for office and you can be president of the United States convicted of a felony. So there's going to be some issues here of what happens if Trump is the nominee and he's convicted of a felony and he potentially has to go to prison. This is where it gets kind of interesting because theoretically, what could happen here if they convict him before the November election? What he can do once he becomes president is he can temporarily transfer his power to his vice president. It's under Section 3 of the 25th Amendment. And here it is right here. Section 3 of the 25th Amendment allows the president to temporarily transfer power to the vice president by submitting a written declaration that he's unable to discharge the powers and duties of office. Well, if he's in jail, that would be a reason. But what's interesting then is when the vice president then temporarily becomes president, the vice president then has undoubtedly the power to pardon Trump, at least on any federal charges. And so what could happen? Let's say Vivek is Trump's vice president. Trump is found guilty in these kangaroo court trials. And then what happens is Trump says, okay, well, I'm elected president. I'm going to sign over the presidency temporarily a week for Vivek. Vivek is president. Vivek uses his power of presidency to pardon Trump of at least the federal crimes. We'll get to the state crimes later. And then at that point, he transfers it back to Trump. And so that is totally 100% legal. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So the document case, the federal document case, and this other nonsense case Jack Smith is bringing up of the federal election conspiracy trial, those can totally be pardoned away if Trump wins. So those cases would go away. Now, the state cases is a little bit interesting, and this is where we'll have the constitutional problem because no one ever really, I don't think, thought of this. Now, we do have in the Constitution, Article 6 in the Constitution, Clause 2, is called the Supremacy Clause. No, not white supremacy, but the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution establishes that the Constitution, federal laws made pursuant to it, and treaties under its authority constitute the supreme law of the land and take priority over any conflicting state law. So this means if it comes between a state versus a federal government in a law, the federal government takes supremacy over this, and which kind of makes sense. And then another thing that could happen, because the president has the power to pardon, but can they pardon someone based on a state conviction? And Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution states that the president shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. So if you're impeached, you can't say, "Well, I'm going to pardon myself for being impeached." That's how the government deals with the president that's a criminal. The Congress impeaches him. But you notice it really doesn't say anything here that it doesn't explicitly say that the president can't pardon for state crimes. That would have to go to the Supreme Court. And how this is would get interesting is if they don't allow if they allow a state then to convict, let's say the Georgia case or the New York Stormy Daniels case about federal records, and they want to put Trump into prison. So Trump wins. The federal cases, it don't matter anymore because either Trump himself potentially could pardon himself. It's nothing to say he can't do that. But at the very least, he could hand power to the vice president. The vice president, then who's president, could pardon him on the federal crimes. 100%. There's no problems with that. The state charges, we just don't know. Traditionally, it's always been thought that the president can't pardon you based on committing a state crime. But again, the Supreme Court could rule in this situation. This is really a federal matter because this is election to the presidency of the United States, which is a federal office. And do you really want states to have the power to imprison a president? Because at this point, what would happen as our country breaks apart, we never had a think about this before, but we're tribal now. Theoretically, any state then could veto anyone from being president that they don't like. For example, Hawaii's always heavily Democrat, and they could say, well, whoever the Republican nominee is, or whoever becomes president, we're going to set up some bullshit trial here in Hawaii, and the jury, they're all shit lib Democrats. No matter what, they're going to find them guilty, and then we're going to have that Republican president go to jail in Hawaii. So they could stop any Republican from being president. And theoretically, it could go the other way around. Arkansas, which is a red state, the district attorney in some jurisdiction here in Arkansas could say, hey, Biden has really interfered with our election results because of his corruption with Hunter and taking these bribes. And we're gonna have a court case here in Arkansas about it in a red county. And Biden may be found guilty. So does Biden go to prison in Arkansas? He can no longer be president, even though the other states support him. See, this is a huge constitutional issue. I don't really know how they're going to get out of if they allow states to override the federal government and the people's wishes in an election and put someone in prison. And again, any state then could just veto anyone from being president. And then that just, this is what happens when you don't have the united people. Everything starts to break apart. It really is the calm before the storm. So hang on, guys. We're in for a wild ride. Nikki Haley's staying in this race because she's hoping that Trump will be found guilty in these cases, which he probably will be. But then what happens? Do they try to kick Trump out of the party? I think that's what she's hoping for. And the party bigwigs put her as a nominee, because I doubt the delegates will vote for her. And then, but if they don't remove Trump could be headed into the election in prison with a convicted felony. Then he could get these federal charges dismissed, and then to go to the Supreme Court. Can a state put a president in jail? It's going to get wild. This is the stuff of civil war potential right here happening. So batten down, get ready to head to the storm shelter because the tornado is coming. Talk to you guys later.